Hi, here's Florian from 99 Startups, and I'm today here with Markus Nagel, the CEO of Zurich Germany Insurances. So thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I would say let's start right away with the interesting stuff. I read about you have a concept you call champions teams. Can you explain a bit more what this is?
Yeah, so we have decided to set up 4 so-called champions teams. The background is that we have realized in order to drive innovation forward, we need to change the way we operate, we work together. And we have designed these teams according to customer segments. There's a champions team for Generation Y, one for rush hour of life, it's the age group of year 30 to 45, 50. That's agile and the small and medium-sized enterprises. These teams work fully integrated across the value chain in one team together, and they are developing from customer personas, customer journeys, and first so-called MVPs for certain solutions or products. So that's the purpose of these teams.
So you have like small teams which working together in a kind of design thinking model, and they are like a big mix of skills. So it's
absolutely. So we mix together underwriters, marketing people, claims people, customer service people. They all sit in one room and they work on a specific topic. It's always a combination of some internal issues where we want to improve a pain point on, let's say, customer service side or on the claims, or also look at new ways on how we attract customers to our propositions.
So is this something that people do on the side, or are they like have this as full-time job?
That's a full-time job. We have set it up 2 years ago and developed it step by step. So those employees or team members are recruited from the existing functional teams, and therefore they bring a big in-depth of experience, and we combine them with agile coaches and scrum masters, and it's usually led by an experienced person like a general manager who drives forward these ideas.
So how did the employees experience it? Like, what was the feedback? Because like it's quite a difference if you working in a big company and then you need to switch to agile.
Yeah, it was a big change process, and I would say we have now seen a very big traction in terms of outcome and acceptance within the organization. Of course, in the beginning they were regarded as a kind of a think tank in a little bit cynic way, but now they are more established and they have shown the first results. For the employees, it has been usually a very good experience, so there's very little negative feedback which I heard so far. It's more usually about how do I have a guarantee to go back into my function if necessary. But once if the people are embedded in the team, usually they like the way they work so much that there's no real big appetite to go back. But we have a kind of an exchange program developed so where people can also go back into their original function, and we also want to fertilize this kind of exchange so that more and more people get this hands-on experience.
So your plan is in the future to give as much as possible, like as much people as possible, this experience of the agile working?
Yeah, so our first target is to have around 10% of our workforce enabled to work in this way, and that represents around 460 people. We have now trained around 200 employees and managers in the new way of working. We send them on an expedition in Berlin. They go through a kind of an educational program. It has started this year. We will continue next year. And the nice thing to see is that the demand on behalf of the employees is huge. It's much bigger than we thought.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's always a good sign. So it's really interesting because like out of my perspective, it looked like you built a little startup in the middle of your company structure, and so you like what is your vision there? Like you want to have in 20 years like 10%, 20%, 30% agile in your company, or how you want to change the organization?
The vision is that we have around 10%, maybe more, being able to work under the new way of working, to change the company culture through that activity as well. We believe that the insurance business will move step by step from a push model to a pull model, which means that we must have more direct interaction with the customer. But even if it's not a customer and it's a distributor, it's a similar experience which we need to work on. Insurance is a low-touch business, low-touch product. So we need to find ways how to get in touch with the customer more frequently, more often, to improve the customer experience around our proposition. And that's why I believe a way to achieve that is to build this organization I described and broaden it through the functions we have currently. So that's a step-by-step process. I can't tell you how long it will take, but I'm highly convinced that this is the way forward if we want to achieve a much closer customer relationship going forward.
Oh, okay, really cool. So I read like a big goal for you is like to streamline the existing organization. So I think the Agile project is like one way you approach that. What other ways you have to tackle that problem?
Well, we are making a big investment in our IT infrastructure, so that will enable us to develop modern APIs for most of our core product lines. And the next step will be then to look at what kind of ecosystems we can connect to our propositions going forward in order to increase the frequency to be in touch with the customer. So that's going to be that's the vision going forward. So we will at the same time also maintain a certain tailoristic way of managing. I think that goes without saying. We have a lot of transactions to handle every day. We have a very strong technical excellence, and in some of the areas we will continue with the current way of working, and we need to find the right balance between the agile organization, developing new ideas, new propositions, new services, and maintaining a certain level of steady goal, steady state in some of our operations, such as the customer service department or the technical excellence department, underwriting, for example, and others.
Yeah, awesome. So, like, you leading like a huge company, like over 5,000 employees. So, if you like the concept of mission, values or vision, how do you think about this concept?
So, of course, we have a mission, we have values, and now it's a matter of change process going forward. You definitely cannot, convince all 5,000 people that is the right direction, but we see a very good momentum within the customer development departments, distribution, and so on. And you can see obviously that there's a big change in the market here going forward. So, to change a big company like this takes time. We need to recognize that. There will be some fallbacks, but I'm quite pleased about the first 2 years when we started the program, how we have really managed and made the right experiences and corrected also some of the ideas we had in the beginning in order to get in alignment with the whole team in the organization.
So, like, for this changing process, leadership is like really important. So how you would describe your leadership, your way of leading for the whole company and also for like the teams you're working like really close together? What would be your description for that?
So, I mean, this is a very good question because now I'm myself trying to change from being very more directive towards more, generative in such a way that the teams, we will empower them more, we'll try to give them more decision power within a certain frame. In a, organization like ours and in the market in which we operate, disciplined execution is key to success going forward. The markets are mature, it's not so easy to grow the market, and therefore you need to have a disciplined approach to a lot of projects you're running. And the big challenge is that we have a big existing business, and we know that the new business will look completely different. So my leadership style is a combination of ensuring a very disciplined execution on one hand on some of the key projects, and also allowing enough freedom for innovative ideas and more empowerment around these ideas through the teams we have created. That's the big change process also for myself and the team and the management team in Germany.
So what is concrete ideas you use to balance these two ways?
Well, that is, it's all about in the discussion with the management team. You need to, once you're in the top leadership position, all the easy decisions are made, and it's usually about resource allocation. You could do much more than you always want to do more than you have resources. And we have intense management discussions how we want to allocate between the old world and the new world, our money, time, and management overall. So we have every week intensive discussions. We are going to change the way we sit. We want to sit much closer together, not behind doors anymore. So that will happen next year with new offices in which we will move to. I try to create a very good communication philosophy between my colleagues, that we bring all the difficult issues on the table very quickly. We try not to postpone decisions too long. And that so far has worked quite well, but it's a process. There's no one way, golden bullet, how you can really, achieve that. It's a constant balance between, discipline, execution, and empowerment in terms of creating space for new ideas, where we can also fail but also correct quickly.
So the biggest advantage for a startup is that they are quite flexible, and they are right away really close to their customer and also close in their team for feedback. So how do you get your feedback from customer one and in your company second? So
we have something called Zurich Community, where we have a kind of an internet forum and also direct contacts with customers who are willing to cooperate with us on a constant basis. So we have a very good forum where you can get feedback. We have a good forum with distribution partners where we try to include them in our way of thinking and design of new ideas. So there's a constant feedback loop within that. We also, I try to give a lot of feedback to the teams who develop new ideas. And at the end of the day, the test is when you launch a minimal viable product in a pilot stage and see how much you will sell at the end of the day. And that's the big advantage of us. We can, make some failures without wrecking the boat usually, and we can try and try a lot of things, which we have done in the past, and that has worked quite well, actually, I have to say.
Awesome. And how do you get feedback personally, or for your educational for your self-education?
So I do walk the floor session. I just did one today and was quite impressed how the initiatives we have started 2 years ago is now also starting to spread around in other departments. So there's a kind of an internal demand happening and desire for making a change towards a new way of working with Scrum Master design thinking, especially in claims and other service departments. So people are starting to organize themselves in such a way, and that's really, really satisfying for myself.
So, what do you do to inspire yourself or to invest in yourself?
So I usually like, to look very much forward, and I was excited when I was 2.5, 3 years ago in San Francisco to see, and where I was kind of close on one of these tours to the new ideas and concepts, and I was immediately infected what I have seen, how the world will change. in combination, a new way of working and the technology which is out there. So that's kind of inside myself. I don't need big motivation. If I see new opportunities, I get very much excited and think through it, how we can make it work and how we can change the organization in order to be a better place for people and for customers going forward. So that's kind of intrinsic within myself. That's why I'm very excited about the new world, what the digital technology will allow us to do.
Yeah, awesome. So, can you tell us something about your story, like about your way to become, like how you start your education, what was your first job, and then how you ended up as the CEO of Zurich Germany Insurance?
Okay, I try to make a quick snapshot. Originally, I was planning to become a top 100 tennis player when I was young. And once I finished school with 18, I tried for 2 years. And I made it to a certain level, which was fine, but too many injuries and frustrations connected with this made me think, and I corrected my path, started to study business economics in Frankfurt, finished there, and also was always keen to look at the United States because we all know the United States is 5 years ahead of us, usually in terms of trends and developments. And at that time, I decided to do an additional MBA of International Management, which I finally did in Phoenix. It was a great time. Came back, started with the traditional bank in Germany, Commerzbank, as a strategic assistant to one of the managing directors. And to be honest, it was quite good. It was in the asset management side of the business. I found it a little bit boring, to be honest, after a while. And my boss at that time gave me a big opportunity to write a business plan for market entry in Eastern Europe. That was the time when the Berlin Wall fell and the whole Eastern European countries opened for capitalism or market economics. And I was really excited to get the chance to write a business plan. And I was very young. I was like 30 years old or 31 years old, can't remember exactly. And when I came back from my holidays after I had submitted the documentation, he immediately called me in his office, and I was made the project manager for the market entry in Poland. And I launched in 1997 the seventh investment fund company in Poland under the name of Scarpiet, which is still a listed company today. So to make a long story short, I basically became a kind of a founder, sponsored by the company, by the bank, which I was really grateful. They gave me, God thanks, a lot of cash, which helped me to create that company. And we made it to the top three within a short period of time. We were also number one for a short period of time. And it was a really exciting time building a company from scratch. And after 7 years, I left Poland. The bank sent me to London to work for another larger investment company they owned, where I spent roughly 5 years. And then they sold it, and I left the bank and decided to pursue a new career. And I ended up at Zurich in headquarters, where I was responsible for a global role, managing the IFA network for Zurich in the life business. That I have done that for 3 years, 14 countries, different challenges from building businesses and also changing businesses going forward. And I was then sent in 2012 to Germany to lead the life business here for roughly 3 years, 3.5, 4 years. And since 2016, I was made the CEO of the country here in Germany for Zurich. So that's in a snapshot my career development. And I was really, what I learned a lot when I did the startup in Poland, basically. That made me as a manager. I have gained a lot of experience. I had a lot of, difficult periods when at that time in a market where everybody was trying to recruit people, salaries doubled every 3 weeks, more or less. It was a very difficult time to build a business, but it gave me so much experience from which I still today, really tap into that feeling and that way of working, which I learned there a lot.
So what was the key learning point there in Poland, you would say? It was quite interesting. You had like you had like kind of a startup, but like the money problem was a bit on the side. So what was the key learning points there?
Oh, you as a quasi entrepreneur, you have to basically cope with every possible change which will come. You know, things like on a Friday evening, you sit in the office and your lawyer quits after just have given him a salary increase of 50% the week before, and you have only one lawyer at that time. You know, so how do you cope with such a situation? And no matter what, even if a large company is backing you, I mean, the clock is ticking the moment you open the business and you get a license for a business. The clock is ticking basically. And when I launched the first 3 investment funds at that time with the team together in October 2017, suddenly the Russian crisis emerged. And our product, which we just launched after 3-4 weeks, really had a very bad performance due to the market circumstances. So what do you sell then? I mean, it's very difficult to sell a hope in a new market without having a big track record. So 3 months later, we rebuilt our strategy, focusing on a little bit different kind of asset classes or product lines. And we put a huge focus on that, and that made us hugely successful. So we tapped into something nobody in the market so far has really looked at closely, and we were successful with it, but it took a lot of energy, to be honest.
So how big was the team, like in the first month, 1 month or 2 months?
10 people. We grew up to 50 after 2 years, then up to 250 after 3.5, 4 years. Then we merged with other companies, so we had to, unfortunately lay off around 200 people. And but we managed to create a stable business after 4.5, 4 or 5 years, which was great. So we started to have profit and payback for the shareholder.
So how did you work with the problem? Like, can you speak Polish, or like how did you overcome the language barrier?
So at that time, I had a lot of young people who all spoke English. I had a colleague in the management team who was, of course, Polish, and he dealt with all the issues. I tried many times to speak Polish. I did it okay, I would say, but I'm far away from being a perfect speaker in Polish and reading and writing. I mean, if you work in an industry, after a while, you understand the basic terminologies in most of the different languages you deal with. But the advantage I had, a lot of Polish people, they have a big affinity for the US or for English speaking, and that's why it was relatively easy to hire people with English language skills.
Awesome. So would you say that, like, as the team grows, your experience out of your big corporation did help you a lot to manage the teams? Yeah, I mean, I was like 3 years before, I was the strategic assistant of a large business, and the advantage I had access, and I saw a lot of different departments, how they operated. I saw the whole picture, which made it for me kind of a good training ground to understand how to set such an operation, even if it's small, in an emerging country. And I could tap also, since it was a joint venture, into these resources while I'm doing so. And that helped a lot. It gave me a good insight how the interlink between the different departments have to be organized and what is critical and where to start. But it still was a lot of work. It's one way is to write a business plan. The second issue is to execute it. You usually need to work on your plan B immediately. And that's a good point. Always be flexible. So if you could go back to your younger self, like 20 years old and 30 years old, like what for advice you would give to a 20 years old self? Very good question. Today, I would definitely get as much as exposure possible to the new way of working around the design thinking and so on. It will become a standard after a while. There will be nothing special, but I think it's important to have this experience
and being able as well to understand how this works and how you can apply it where the borders are. I would, if depending on your responsibility, if you have a family or not, I would try to look at, getting experience from being in a startup for a while. But let's not be naive, not every startup will make it. So the alternative is also to get into teams like we have created in large companies where you can tap in huge resources and learn a lot during the next 5 years if you're 30. I think from 30 to 35, it's still the time where you need to learn and where you need to have the first leadership experience or management experience you can get. And then from 35 on, probably you can build a career.
Awesome. Really good advice. So before we finish the podcast, what's your favorite book?
Oh, my favorite book. Now it's Up the Organization from Peter Townsend. I just read it. That's why, I like it very much. It's a very hands-on guide on management and leadership. It's a very old book, actually. It has been written, I think, in the 60s, 65, it was one New York bestseller. But some of his theses I find extremely helpful, especially for startups.
Awesome. So do you have a advice for the end before we wrap up the podcast? Well,
it is for everyone who wants to create a business, and even for companies who have already an established business. Let's always remind ourselves, we're here to create a customer, or the purpose of a company is to create and keep a customer, like what Peter Drucker said. I like a lot what he did in terms of his management series. And I looked a lot when I was very young and started this company in Poland. How do I train myself? What is the guidance for me? And I learned a lot from his books, and I tried to apply it, and it works.
Awesome. Then thank you very much for the time you made free for me. And thank you very much. And until next time.
Thanks a lot. It was great speaking to you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening. To get the show notes, just subscribe and feel free to leave comments. Until next time.